Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of my channel. My name is Brandon Gorrie. I'm happy to have you here. And today we're going to talk about something really cool. It's a plugin I've been playing around with for the last month and a half. It's called Dehancer. And what it basically does is it's a film emulation software that basically it turns your digital photos into film, and it does a really good job. In fact, it's the best color science algorithm I've seen out there to do just this. So that's what we're basing the episode around. I want to show you guys some real world examples of how you can use Dehancer for your photography if you don't want to use film. A lot of guys I know, they're switching to sort of like film emulation on digital because film has just become so expensive. It costs an arm and a leg. I've talked about this in previous videos, and I also talk about it in a podcast linked here above if you're interested in talking about film prices and how obnoxious it is that we're paying so much for film. But getting back to Dehancer, I want to talk about what Dehancer is, how you use it, and how I've used it, and basically how accurate of a portrayal you can get out of using this plugin. So I basically want to cover the general FAQs about Dehancer. It is a plugin available for Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, Photoshop, and Capture One. Now, I personally have recently adopted a Capture One to Photoshop workflow in which it actually works really nicely when I go from Capture One to Photoshop to make my edits and then back to Capture One. So that seems to work out perfectly, and I'll show you guys how to use that. Some other things I should mention after using Dehancer is that you should set some expectations. First and foremost, film is such a specific chemical reaction between light and emulsion on your film stock that it just simply cannot be reproduced digitally. Now, that being said, it gets pretty close, and it does leave a very successful impression of what film would look like on digital. I also just want to say that the color reproduction that you'll get on film is going to be drastically different and quite noticeable when in direct comparison with Dehancer. It is not going to replace film, but what it is going to do is it has a color science that brings your digital images into the mood, into the realm, and into the impression that film leaves your audience. And for a lot of people, that's close enough. For me, that's close enough. And after all, if I want to shoot film, I can always go shoot film on my film cameras and enjoy film that way as well. So what we're going to do is first we're going to go into Dehancer, and I'm going to show you guys all the tools, what each different slider does, and basically give you an idea of what this software is capable of. And then afterwards, we're going to go through 3 separate photos from sort of different backgrounds and different environments to show you how it basically works with different photos in different environments and what it's capable of and the kind of film look you can accomplish. And then we're going to look at established presets from the Dehancer team, and as well as the featured presets, to kind of give you an idea of what this software is capable of when it's not just you fiddling around with the dials. I think the presets are a great place to start from, and then from there you can kind of get an idea of what each dial does and how they work well together to create your own style of film. Does the software do a good job of replicating film stock? Yes, it does an okay job when you have a metered digital photo and you're starting from a pretty good spot of a well-balanced photo. But what it will not do is it will not take a poorly metered, poorly shot photo and make it look like a good film shot. It's only as good as the photos you put in there, so meter really well and create as balanced of a photo as possible so that Dehancer can start from a blank slate and kind of build the character into it from there. It's also better to understand that this is it's a film building software. So I think a lot of people find that they're not trying to emulate like Kodak, and that's not gonna be their goal so much as they want to emulate film overall. And so without further ado, let's dive right in. So here we go. I've just opened Capture One, and basically this is my workflow because I got Dehancer for Capture One, so this is how we're gonna do it. So my basic workflow is I make sure to meter a photo, I make sure to edit and balance it to make sure that it looks good. I'm just doing this real quick before we head into Dehancer so that I can create the most optimum image possible before editing. So I just want it to be balanced and well metered beforehand. If you look at our histogram up in the top left, it looks like we're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this into Photoshop where I can edit with Dehancer. So just edit into Photoshop, send that in as a TIFF at 300 pixels an inch, looking great. So this will now open my image in Photoshop. I'm gonna create a duplicate layer and all that just to edit with Dehancer. All right, so here's where we're gonna go through all the bells and whistles. See, it's already put on its own preset. So, okay, first and foremost, this is the plugin. At the bottom here, you're gonna have your histogram where you can see your basic color data, basic light data. You're gonna have your preview, which obviously you're gonna wanna have kept on so that you can see the film edits that are going to be applied to it. Here, I wanna get rid of all the added stuff, so it'll show you right here on the left. You've got your original image. It looks pretty balanced on the histogram, a little bit to the dark side, but that's okay. It's a digital image, we can handle that. So we've got everything in front of us. Obviously you're wondering, how do I zoom in to see the quality? And that's where you want to hit this 1 by 1. That'll zoom into 100%, and here you can just kind of click around and see what you're working with and see the detail of your effects. And then here you can click the histogram to get rid of and see it. That's technically, you don't need it, but for a lot of guys, they enjoy it. So let's get down to brass tacks. We're gonna start on the right here. This is everything we need. I'm just gonna make this channel make this window a lot bigger so that we can all get the best bang for buck. Now on your left here, you're gonna see all the presets, and I know it's tempting to go through those, but right now we're just gonna start with the sliders. So of course we've got our exposure compensation. If you took a photo that is underexposed and you don't want to use another software, you don't have another software to change it, here you can make that change. Temperature compensation, again, these are all basic controls. If you move it to your left, you're gonna get cooler. If you move it to your right, you're gonna get warmer. I like that the temperature change is gradual, and it's not like Lightroom where it's extremely sudden and abrupt. It's a very gradual change. I love that because the color and the temperature is a massive deal when it comes to taking film photos. That's something you want to be very precise. And the same with the tint. Moving it green to magenta here. Love that. Again, very, very slow throw. Or long throw, I should say, on these sliders. Now, defringe, it's really not doing a whole lot. I'm looking at the details and I'm trying to see what exactly it's doing. Not a whole lot. Let's bring the radius up. Let's bring that fringe all the way up. Okay. And what I kind of don't like, which is hard to tell, is how much of a change is being made, is when you move a slider, the whole image blurs, giving you a kind of like, it almost resets your eyes to where you can't tell what's been changed. And so that happens with quite a bunch of these. So let's go into the film developer here. We're going to turn this on, and this is where you're going to get kind of your major attributes of the film itself. So like a lot of film is either going to be, very rarely is film balanced. A lot of it's either going to have a contrast boost or a contrast pull. So here you can make that change. In terms of what the contrast is, I find it very interesting. Is if you've been shooting a while and you've been using a lot of contrast sliders in your years of shooting, you notice that the contrast does have a difference. So this doesn't look like a regular contrast in any digital editing software for digital photos. It does sort of mimic a pushed film contrast in that it makes the image darker and doesn't really affect the whites so much. It brings them out of a flat area for sure, but it doesn't touch the whites as much as it touches the darks. I really like that because when you're pushing film, it affects the shadows a lot more than it affects the highlights. So that's something they got right. Again, it's those minor details. If you're a guy that doesn't shoot film very often, you're not gonna notice it. But from someone who is very happy to push Ilford HP5 Plus to 1600, you get to notice these differences. Now again, gamma correction, it's going to be, well, I mean, it doesn't seem to make any difference. Again, I think that's something that would, there we go. So gamma correction works in accordance with contrast boost. So let's say we're adding contrast here because I shot this on Nikon's digital flat, so it's going to come out a little bit more flat. You want to do a gamma correction to kind of improve the overall image, because that contrast boost, like we just mentioned, is going to boost the shadows over the highlights. Again, this is detailed technical stuff you're going to want to pay attention to, but when you get used to it, it's there. In terms of color separation, I'm just going to turn that all the way down. Again, not a whole lot. Let's do a contrast boost. Color separation. Boom. Okay, so let's say we needed to contrast boost it, and then we needed to correct it with the gamma, right? So we've got those two things, and we're looking closer to our original image, which is nice and balanced. Color separation, what it does is it minimizes the difference between the oranges and the greens in the photo and sort of harmonizes altogether the image profile. But I can see when that would be helpful. Again, these are very minor things. This is a film emulation software, so they do a great job at the little stuff. And then color boost. So yeah, let's just throw this all together. Let's say you did contrast boost, right? You did gamma correction to make sure you're bringing the photo back. You did color separation to kind of balance, balance the hues out. And then you did color boost to basically bring the color back in. It'd be more balanced. And there you go. So we're gonna cut out of there. Film compression, let's see what we got. You start with 60. There we go. So film compression, basically what this is doing is film shoots flat. Film shoots very flat. Digital, as much as we've improved technologically, a digital sensor isn't going to shoot that flat on a photo. We can try, but it's never going to be as flat as film, at least not yet. So this film compression is going to basically forcing all your data into the grays in a way that would look like film. So now that you've compressed it and you've got that 100% compression, everything's flat, but we're trying to, we're kind of maintaining color as best we can. You're going to change that white point to artificially bring your highlights back in, and there we go. And then tonal range, again, that just compresses the hell out of it. Tonal range, you want to bring this down to kind of even the distance between the white point and your midpoint. And then color density, let's see what this. Not a whole lot of difference. So that's film compression. Again, super minor things. When you pile all these things together, in fact, I think we should. What you get is, I think it'll be really interesting. So let's go on this black point to expand. Again, it's just bringing the blacks up in a manner that emulates film more than it does digital. Right now I can't tell too much. It looks very similar to just a regular black point slider, so I'm not sure if that's the case. Again, what we're doing is you'd almost want to use these sliders destructively, because right now what we're doing is we're going down all these lists and we're just balancing and rebalancing an image, which is inherently just going to alter quality. Right, so let's get into what's going to make it look like film, right? So all these things right here, this is going to change. Well, let me turn this off real quick, and the grain. But all right, so this is going to change basically the output formula for what your image is going to be. So Cineon Film Log This is a great place to start if you love cinematic things. So Cineon is the process in the 80s of scanning Kodak film. And the Cineon process is actually emulated by Sony's S-Log3. So if you're a video guy, S-Log3 is meant to emulate Cineon Film Log. So it's meant to create a super flat profile. It's meant to emulate movie reel film before it's colored and graded. So that's just important to keep in mind. And then here we are, we've got our Kodak 2383 print film. Again, it's a very cinematic profile, which is basically, it's emulating a film look, and a classic film look at that. So for the sake of photography, if we're working in a photographic profile and trying to emulate photographic film, then we're going to want to stay in linear. And then, you know, of course you're shooting. If you're shooting in Vision 3500T, probably the same thing, because you'll be switching to a Cinestill 800T profile. So let's move into the exposure here. Again, this is going to be an exposure tailored to this profile. So again, I like this tonal contrast. It pertains more to the color than the other contrasts and the other light adjustments, so that's nice. It also affects the whites a lot more equally as it would the blacks in the photo, so that's cool. Color density. Again, this is all if we're trying to emulate a film paper as well. So let's say we're not trying to emulate a printed film photo. We're gonna go to our color head, and this is where we can really change the tones of like the film stock here. So if you're trying to emulate like a Kodak, you keep your greens to be all very color accurate. Your magentas in the skin would be lower. Your cyans and reds would be, yeah, just super. I mean, we've been balancing this whole time. But if we get into the film grain here, this is what's gonna really give you that film look. Again, it's more difficult to create a film look based on the fact that it's film. It's a lot easier to try to emulate a specific film stock, and it's also a lot easier to start from a preset. So we're just adding an amount of grain in here that looks pretty good. Again, it's like part of this film emulation is you have to be okay with decreasing the quality of your images for the sake of a look. Now, once we've got our grain in there, it makes it easier to adjust the tone to sort of get that film look, that like old-timey film look. So we've pushed our magentas into the skin tones, and we can push our cyans into the red so we can get that nice film look. Boom, there it is, Goldilocks. It's a warm 70s summer day. We love it. Let's take our cyans and take the red out of them. Okay, so we've got cooler greens now. What does that mean? It means we're instinctively moving into Fuji territory. Now, here's the thing, is I don't want to take too much from our greens. So I'm going to cool the skin off there from the yellows. And again, this is pushing blue into our greens as well. Now we're going to push magenta into our skin tones here. And let's see if we can balance this out to get a nice kind of pinkish skin that we'd find in Fuji. And the highlights, obviously we're going to change the coolness of the highlights. This was a cloudy day, and I find that with Fuji, the clouds will turn a kind of bluish. And then we'll change the midtones, which is kind of like the skin. And so like there, you kind of get like a Fuji thing. The reds here are not as saturated as they should be for reds, but that's okay. Let's move to the halation. There we go. It's immediate. You can see the halation. We love that. A lot of people, when they're going for the film look, the thing that they're looking for is halation. So this, I think, for a lot of people is going to be the defining factor, and there's a lot of control. What I like to do here is I like to limit the source. I like to make the smoothness more apparent. Global diffusion. See, that adds an amount of halation to different parts, to like, that makes it a more global thing instead of isolated to the whites. Amplify, obviously we're going to make our halation bigger, more noticeable. Hue, this is going to basically change it from more of an orange to more of a pinkish hue. So we go left, we get that intense red. We go right, we go more orange. So we add a little bit more red, pinkish into the hues. And depending on where you're shooting and how you're shooting, you're going to want to change this tone. So just for the sake of flattering the eye, you're going to want this red to be the opposite of that tone of green. So I find that a little bit to the left just inherently looks better because we're thinking about the color wheel. Blue compensation. So what that does is, if your image has cool tones in it, this is going to basically reverse that in the reds so that the reds aren't carried by the blue, which is a very intelligent thing to do, because if you want your halation to kind of stand out from the rest of the white balance or the rest of the tone of the photo, that's when you'd use blue compensation. And then impact, again, this is just going to be the overall the overall how much is in the photo. So you've made all your adjustments here, and then at the end of the day, impact is almost like your opacity. You're just changing the absolute amount that is going to be in your photo. So there we are. And then like once you change this, obviously it changes the look of your film. So let's say we want to go a little bit more red. There we go. We bring the yellows back into there, and suddenly, you know, with the halation, we can go back and retroactively move this into a different direction, which I think is really cool. Bloom, again, that's going to be how much the light is scattering. So film inherently, because it's light hitting a medium, the light scatters on the film, and you'll pick up halations from light itself that's not red, but rather just a scattering of light on textures, and that's what this captures. You're going to be changing your detail and everything like that. But see, look at that. That's crazy. So if you were shooting stuff that was like super dreamy, this is where you'd use that. And again, like there's no film that actually looks like this. But the thing is with this software, you don't have to emulate existing film. You can just make your own look. You can bring your own ideals to life. And then here we go. We change the impact so it's not super unrealistic. But right there, right? Take the highlights down a bit. Boom. That's its own look. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's my look, but it's a look. And then, of course, last but not least, we've got our vignetting. Whoopsies. There we are. And if you're a photographer, you know what vignetting is. It really just changes how much light reaches the corners of your frame. And you can change your size and obviously the gradient at which your vignette hits. Okay, now that being said, let's move into our 3 photos. We're gonna move kind of quickly through these so I can just show you what is possible in different environments with Dehancer. Okay, so here we've got an unedited, right out of the camera, raw photo of Alyssa. And so what we're gonna wanna do is we're looking at this histogram at the top right, and we're gonna wanna balance this photo, make the light just a little bit more balanced. And I'm gonna take the contrast down artificially, just a wee bit, because I know that Dehancer has all of its own tools, so I kind of just want to make a flat image. It's a bit warm, but I think we'll survive. So what we're going to do is Command Option Shift E, and this is the layer that we're going to want to edit at the bottom right here. Okay, because that layer has the brightness and contrast baked in. See if I do that and do that, or it's the same image. Okay. Photoshop 101. So let's select that layer, go to filters, hit Dehancer film, and here with this really cool shot, it is shot with a single key light. I want to show you the presets. I want to get to the presets so that we can all see that. So first and foremost, the Dehancer team has made some really cool profiles here, some presets. So immediately I want to go to Kodak Vision 3 500T 2383, which is one of my favorites, and that gives you a very desaturated, very dramatic look, which brings your mids into the shadows, but it seems to maintain highlights. So yeah, it doesn't seem to bring the highlights down very much, but gives this very nice cool mid-tone to shadow look. Okay, and then what's cool is from here is you can actually go in and develop the film further with all the bells and whistles that we talked about earlier. So I think the presets are a great place to springboard off of, and then you can build the film however you want. Again, I could play with this for hours and make my own, emulation. But let's say I love this. Let's say I really dig what I just did here. I can go over here and I can create a preset with the current settings. It's based on the Cinestill 800T with the halation. So I type in Brandon01. That's all good. Author, Brandon Gorrie, add preset. And here we've got our own personal folder that we can click down and go to my presets. And we've got our Cinestill 800T Brandon01. And we can just go to original, and we can take any photo and throw this on and edit as we please, which is really helpful. Then we hit OK, And of course, only this layer is affected, and so that's great. I love that. If you're like me and you're using a Capture One workflow, what you can do is I've sent it into Photoshop from Capture One and I've edited it like this. I can literally just go here, flatten all my images, hit Command S to save the TIFF, and then when I go to Capture One, what will happen is it will create a duplicate of my photo in Capture One, and this is all my edits saved as a TIFF in really high quality. And then I can go here and let's say I want to make some minor adjustments to just really, you know, change some things, or use Capture One's amazing color science to start editing stuff. I can look at the greens that are inherent in this here, and I can make those warm adjustments. I can change the smoothness. I can bring out the saturation of those greens. I can take them away and make it look more stoic. That's just if you're using Capture One. I'm going to reset that. All right, now moving on to another photo. So this is Studio. Now for this one, I don't want to mess with color. I want to check out the black and white color science. We've made our second layer here. Let us go to Filter, Dehancer, Film as per usual, and look, it threw on my preset here that I just did. That's really cool. But what we're gonna do is original. All right, so here's the thing. I can straight up go to Ilford HP5 Plus, boom. So that's a great starting point. And then from here, we can develop the film. It also looks really good. The amount of grain that they've included is lovely. I wouldn't actually mind printing that. It looks great to me. If it were me though, I'd wanna, first of all, check out. So we've got some room here to play with the highlights, maybe change the exposure compensation, make it a little bit more intense. Do that contrast boost, absolutely. Love that contrast boost. And that's looking pretty good. And then again, if we wanted to make it non-Ilford HP5, we could seriously just have a good time. Increase our amplify, make it a little bit softer, make it a little bit stylistic. The fusion as well. I mean, what if we just added halation? Like, what if we just did that? You know, let's give it some amplify. And what's really cool is even though it's black and white, it definitely has that like old glow to it. It's desaturated, but it's a look nonetheless, and I think that's really cool. So again, you can click OK, boom, there it is. You've got your other background here. And the cool thing is, like, you can still get creative and, like, you know, use different blend modes on Photoshop, which I think is really cool. And you can kind of implement it in any way. The sky is really the limit, you know, like, look at this. You do that, suddenly you add a little bit of this, and it's like you're in a 2000s, you know, magazine. It's sick, you know, look at that, absolutely wow. But I digress. Okay, for this last photo, I think it's really important. Here we go, and I wanted to include this photo specifically because I actually took this photo on Cinestill 800T. So what I wanted to do here, I thought it'd be a really cool experiment, is I wanted to develop this photo as an 800T photo and then compare side by side with how I actually shot it on Cinestill 800T. So let's get to it. This is really exciting. I've been wanting to do this for a while now. So in the interest of time, let's go to featured presets where they have the Cinestill look. Let's do this Cinestill Blue Moon. All right, immediately what we're gonna do is some tint compensation. And I have an advantage here because I know what the Cinestill photo actually looks like. So this is sick. This is absolutely sick. We're pretty close. Wow, that's looking pretty good. So I'm just gonna merge these together. It's flattened. I'm just gonna save. Then I'm gonna go here. There's that. And then I'm gonna import my actual film shot that I took on Cinestill, and we're gonna just do a side-by-side comparison. Where is it? There it is. So here we go. Let's import that and then boom. So this right here, this is Dehancer right here. This is Cinestill. Do you see, like look at that. Like that is crazy. I'm sliding these across like they do something, but that is absolutely wild. I think that's so cool. I mean, if you look here in the Cinestill, and I've edited this photo already, but it just captures the color range so well. We're preserving the warmth in her skin while getting the halation in the bright whites. We're exhibiting a coolness, a yellow and coolness along these walls, which are actually gray but looked yellow because of the light. And then outside here, it was a sunny day. We're exhibiting colder blues and even magentas peeking into the highlights. It is just so colorful and so beautiful and vivid. We've even got the maintenance, you know, we've still got the redness in the lips. Over here, we couldn't quite get that because we had a washed over, we had a white balance thing that basically cast our entire image into one color profile. And I think that even though that's the case, I think Dehancer handled these colors extremely well for Cinestill 800T. And again, it just goes to show that with tweaking and with like an idea of where you want to go with this and a familiarity with film, you can really bring your photos to a place that not only looks like film, but feels like film, and just gives that otherworldliness of the film look. All in all, I think Dehancer is a really powerful program. I think it's proven itself in both how it can emulate film with its presets, though I truly enjoyed the process of building my own film preset out from start to finish. I think that a lot of the options and a lot of the sliders that Dehancer gives you are incredibly powerful and can really bring you to the precipice, like to right at the edge from where digital is separated by film. And I think Dehancer's done a great job to cross that gap as best as we can in today's world. That being said, if you're interested in using Dehancer for your own self and for your own projects, you can sign up today and save yourself 10% on your purchase using the code Gorrie. I hope you guys enjoy yourself, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions or any theories about what you can do with Dehancer or anything you liked about the video, please go ahead and leave a comment. I try to get back to those as much as possible. And if you had any questions about the Dehancer software, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I might get back to you, I might not. I'm gonna try to get back to you, don't worry. All right, see you guys later.